The topic of the month for March is pilot proficiency training. In this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about loss of control accidents and proficiency training recommendations from the GAJSC, a work group that studies loss of control. We'll talk about the benefits of proficiency training and offer suggestions that will help you to get the most from the experience. Loss of control is the most lethal general aviation accident precursor, and there are 5 principal reasons why LOC occurs. We've all heard about disorientation following intentional or inadvertent continued VFR into instrument meteorological conditions. Indeed, more than 90% of GA accidents that occur in this phase of flight are fatal. Advancements in pilot training and aircraft equipment have reduced the numbers of continued VFR into IMC accidents, so they're not the top GA fatal accident cause. Loss of control during maneuvering flight has that distinction. Sometimes accidents occur while pilots are distracted by something on the ground or in the airplane. The term moose stall is familiar to Alaskan pilots. More than a few Alaskan aviators have lost control while maneuvering for a better view of a moose on the ground. Low-altitude maneuvering for aerial photography is another activity that generates opportunities for loss of control due to distraction. The FAST team has done several programs on the startle response, that human quality that delays or inhibits response to hazards that occur suddenly. There are many stories of pilots who lost control of their aircraft while maneuvering to return to the airport following an engine failure on takeoff or climb-out. Lack of or rusty aircraft handling skill has contributed to loss of control in crosswind operations. And finally, inadequate risk management has led many pilots into situations that they lacked the skill to cope with. The beautiful thing about proficiency training is that, through it, you can maintain and improve pilot performance with respect to each of these loss of control precursors, making it much less likely that LOC will occur. We've all heard the phrase, practice makes perfect. But does it really? According to Vince Lombardi, only perfect practice makes perfect. In other words, you must execute plays and procedures perfectly in practice if you expect them to be perfect in the big game, or, in the case of pilots, in flight. This quote is attributed to Paderewski and many other professional musicians. It acknowledges the necessity of regular practice in order to stay on top of your game. In our case, we might substitute co-pilots and passengers for critics and the audience. The main takeaway is, of course, that no matter what your profession, regular practice to perfection is essential to operating at the top of your game. Most of us have a favorite destination for that $100 hamburger. We've been there before, the route is familiar, and we often bring the family along. Although that's not the ideal proficiency flight. Proficiency flying should involve less frequently practiced evolutions such as stalls, slow flight, ground reference maneuvers, takeoffs and landings, and instrument flying. While it's good to practice at typical mission weights, passengers may not enjoy the experience, at least not as much as straight and level to a popular destination. And passengers are not usually good at critiquing performance or offering useful suggestions for improvement. For that, you need a coach. Can we maintain and enhance our proficiency while flying solo? That's a good question, and the answer is yes. Sort of. All practice hours are worthwhile, but some are definitely more worthwhile than others. If you're going to practice on your own, you need to make the most of each opportunity. Here are some suggestions. First of all, we strongly suggest that you have a plan that lists what maneuvers and evolutions you're going to fly and what the acceptable performance standards will be for each item. Write your plan on paper and take it with you on your flight. Check off each maneuver completed and whether or not you met the standard. Back on the ground, document your results. That way, you can see progress and you'll have information to document your baseline performance that will, in turn, feed into your personal minimums. More about that later. For now, let's just say solo proficiency flying is useful, but there's a way to get much more bang for your proficiency buck, and that's to hire a coach. Every profession relies on coaching to keep practitioners sharp. All flight instructors are trained in performance evaluation and critique, and most make great coaches. Obviously, you're going to look for a coach who's expert in the airplane you'll be flying and familiar with the flight environment. For best results, you want a keen observer and teacher who will push you to excellence in flying. Together, you and your CFI can develop your pilot performance baseline that you can use for flight planning. As you do when you fly solo, be sure to document your results. In order to establish personal minimums, you need to have a baseline. Think of it as your personal, documented demonstration of performance. We suggest you document your performance at least once a year with a CFI. Try to pick a day when you can experience actual crosswind conditions in the airplane you usually fly, and load it to your typical mission weight. Select an airfield that's typical for the missions you fly. If you're planning trips to a short, obstructed runway, try to find something similar to train on. Gather information about the destination airfield from pilots who've flown there, and share that information with your instructor. That will help your CFI to construct realistic scenarios for you to fly. Here's a chart that some pilots use to document their wind, takeoff, and landing performance. We'll tell you where you can find this and other useful charts at the end of this program. Once you've completed the chart, you'll have a performance baseline to work with. You can adjust the performance expectations to compensate for human factors such as stress and fatigue, and you can also adjust your baseline as you gain experience and skill. If you want to adjust your baseline, we strongly suggest that you do it with a CFI. That way you'll have an objective assessment of your capabilities, and a flight instructor may offer suggestions and instruction for improving your baseline performance. Pilots usually think of proficiency training in terms of their usual aviation operations, but if you're willing to expand your horizons, there are a host of options to make proficiency flying more interesting. Twin-engine turbine or instrument training can boost capability and confidence in cross-country operations. Seaplane and tailwheel training are particularly satisfying for folks who learned in nose-wheel airplanes. And even if you don't take on the challenge of another rating or airframe, there's another great way to expand your horizons. Training in new operational environments builds confidence too. If you learn to fly at a small country airport, you're probably very comfortable in a non-towered environment. How about a trip to a major metropolitan airport with your flight coach? The traffic and rapid pace of ATC communications can be daunting at first, but mastering the environment can be very satisfying. Likewise, big city pilots who are comfortable with busy towered operations can be overwhelmed when operating to non-towered or backcountry airstrips. Backcountry transition training can acquaint you with the nuances of rural environments and ensure your wilderness flying can be done safely. Whatever proficiency training you do, you're ahead of the game if you study the book first. Be sure to know these cold before flying with your coach: emergency procedures, speeds, power settings, and configurations for normal operation. As you progress with your study, note any questions you have and review them when you fly with your CFI. FAA's Wings Pilot Proficiency Program is an excellent way to document your training. Your training record is retained online and always available to you and to your CFI. Wings knowledge and flight activities are designed to address common general aviation accident precursors, and your flight activities can be further customized to fit your operations and experience. And there are hundreds of Wings seminars, webinars, and online courses available to you each year. It's all available on one website, www.faasafety.gov. Getting started in Wings is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Create an account on faasafety.gov. 2. Complete your Wings pilot profile. And 3. Attend a Wings seminar or take a Wings flight with your CFI. You can pre-register for credit on faasafety.gov, or you can register via the sign-in sheet at the seminar door. You'll need to request credit for each flight activity. It's easy to do. Just go to your My Wings page and click on Request Credit after the activity has been completed. You'll see a screen that looks like this. Normally, CFIs validate flight credit and requests are sent to them. But if your CFI doesn't participate in Wings, you can find a credit validator near you. Here are a few references for additional information. FAAsafety.gov is the FAST Team website where you'll find a wealth of safety information. You can enroll and track your progress in the FAA Wings Pilot Proficiency Program here. Look in the FAAsafety.gov library for the Off-Airport Operations Guide. In it, you'll find instructions for developing a short field performance baseline, together with other useful information on operating to small fields. Also, in the FAAsafety.gov library, the Personal Minimums Development Guide, your documented proficiency performance can be used to develop minimums that are tailored to you, your aircraft, and your mission. Pause the video here in order to leave this slide on the screen while we take some questions from the audience. By the way, CFIs in the audience are encouraged to navigate to mywingsinitiative.org for information on Wings for CFIs. Please direct any questions to your local FAST Team representative. Narration by Bradford Wood, FAST Team National Outreach Manager. There's nothing like the feeling you get when you know you're playing your A game, and in order to do that, you need a good coach. So fly regularly with a CFI who will challenge you to review what you know, explore new horizons, and to always do your best. Of course, you'll have to dedicate time and money to your proficiency program, but it's well worth it for the peace of mind that comes with confidence. Vince Lombardi, the famous football coach, said, "Practice does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect." For pilots, that means flying with precision, on course, on altitude, on speed, all the time. And be sure to document your achievement in the Wings Proficiency Program. It's a great way to stay on top of your game and keep your flight review current. Your presence here shows that you are a vital member of our general aviation safety community. The high standards you keep and the examples you set are a great credit to you and to GA. Thank you for attending.